Welcome back to Boring Build Friday. Today we have a new build. It's a 2016 GMC Terrain Denali. Now, it has pretty low miles, only 44,000, and it looks like a pretty easy hit. Needs a quarter, inner wheelhouse, suspension, door, liftgate, and bumper. Not too bad. Of course, worst case scenario when the suspension gets ripped off of these, it also takes the mount that's welded underneath between the rocker and the frame rail with it. Of course, this was worst case scenario, so we got to put that on. Not too bad. Of course, the longer you look at this job, the worse it gets. Everything that could have gone wrong with this went wrong. So we have a lot more to fix than just meets the eye. Somebody's been here before, and sadly, this accident actually improved their work. So let's take a look at what happened this time, what happened last time, and how bad our job is going to be. So here's our rear suspension that's supposed to be attached. And here's that bracket that's supposed to be welded in. It's no longer. It just tore the front of this one out, not a huge deal. And this is what's left of the subframe. So we're gonna have to put a rear subframe in it as well. I usually like getting extra parts, but in this case, it wasn't such a good deal because when they threw this in the car, they tore out part of the interior. So when we got our extra parts, they took them and shot put them into the car, which means they broke our spare tire cover. It's all collapsed. It's only some kind of fiber, plastic fiber. It's not meant to hold, I don't know, a couple 100 pounds shot putted from across whatever yard they were throwing them in at. And all that was together, and they laid it up over this back of the seats, which means our suspension tore up our seats. So we're gonna have to either have them repaired or replace them, whichever is cheaper. We did get a tire, still holding there. That's kind of a good deal. So we're gonna need a rear subframe because it did rip those eyelets out for the rear suspension. And that's where our bracket's supposed to be. There's part of it. We're gonna have to put all of it in there. And here's an introduction to what the somebodies that have been here before did. Yep, they kind of hammered that out. As you can see, we have a little body filler there. And I can assure you that it's just the beginning of the body filler. And that isn't even the worst part. Unfortunately, to show you the rest, we have to get it off the trailer. So let's do that. We can't put our rear suspension on to back it off the trailer, which means it's going to be a little interesting getting this thing off the trailer. But don't worry, I haven't forgotten the #1 rule. So to hopefully limit some additional damage, we use the rollback to drag this thing off the trailer. Got a little snagged up there, not quite sure what. Looks like it's caught on the front of the subframe. So we'll lift it up. We set it down on a block of wood at the auction, so we're just going to reposition it so we can drop the bed below that subframe that it's stuck on. If you're wondering if it's cold, the temperature was -4 degrees Fahrenheit, or freedom units. So we got off that subframe, now we can just drag it up. Then move our block, so we're not dragging that front wheel over it. And we're officially off the trailer. So we'll put the stinger down. So when we put the bed forward, we're not dragging it across the trailer. This bed is old, doesn't tilt so well. I just use the stinger to lift it, makes it quicker. So now we're under the shop. We'll lower it down. The wheel's going backwards because it's in park. And it stops slipping on the bed. Now we'll take it out of park. We'll put it in drive just to make sure I'll be able to drive it once it's off the tow truck. Yes, I do mean drive it. So it's in neutral. We'll roll it the rest of the way off. So we get down to the edge of the bed, then we can lift it up. Throw a jack stand underneath it, just so it sits level. Shut it off and put it in park. Now we can set the bed down and roll it out from underneath. Have to disconnect our chains. Now we can roll the bed out from underneath. Need to move the truck forward a little bit. So we'll just tilt the bed up, slide it back. It'll move the axles of the truck. We'll disconnect our chain that got caught on the bumper and slide the bed the rest of the way out. And there it is, on ground level, on a jack stand, with no additional damage. See, tow truck drivers, it is possible. But destroying things is much more fun. I will give you that. So now that we're on ground level, let's see how bad it was the last time and what they did to it. Got some Bondo there. Lots of body filler there. Some more down there. Missing our little cap in the door handle. Looks like this door was replaced. This door was straightened. See there, body work. Quite a bit of body filler in here, which is actually too far out. So maybe I could just sand it down and see what's in there and save the door. I'm not very optimistic. Nice run in here. Also a couple more up here. I don't know if you can see them. One right here. And one right here. But wait, it gets worse. Our airbag light is on. Because apparently the last time the seatbelt's deployed and they weren't replaced. They're not locked up, but this retractor is pulled down, so it's no good. And the side airbag must have gone off, because this was restitched, which is a no-no. Saves money, but might cost you your life. And I guess it really doesn't matter that the airbag wouldn't deploy properly, because I'm almost positive there's no airbag in there. Which means you can bet there's probably no curtains in the headliner. I'll know when I pull it down to be sure. I might as well plug the scanner in and find out now. If we get a code for an open circuit for the curtains, I'd be willing to bet we don't have curtains. So let's plug the scanner in. Curtain. So there's probably no curtains in there. And this one right here means that they never cleared it out after the accident. The driver's seat airbag, seat cover, 2 curtains, and seat belts on both driver and passenger seat. And that's all from the last accident. Now we're going to have to clear the code, reset the module. So a lot of you have asked where I get my parts from. And I usually search junkyards, but since I've done so many of these terrains, I have parted out quite a few of them. Now, this one came from Mississippi, the state, not the river. It had 30,000 miles on it, so it's pretty clean. Now, I bought it originally just for the dash and the airbags. Since then, I've sold quite a few parts. I sold the wheels and tires, the engine, the trans, the seats, and I think a few modules and stuff. So I've gotten my money's worth out of this one. I also used the door and some of the inner structure for another job. Now it's time to pull our rear suspension and our rear door. Now this is the first of a couple parts cars we're going to use. So I'm going to use this door because it's closer in color than our other parts car. It's not the right color, but it's easier to use a white door and cover it with a light silver paint than our other car, which is black, and try to cover the black with the silver paint. It takes more material. Let's get our suspension off of here. We're going to change the whole assembly, because this one actually has lower miles than our other one, and give it an upgrade. Not to mention, it's easier to change the whole rear assembly than it is just to change the subframe and one side. So we're going to drop it all and change it all together. Let's get it apart. So we'll start by pulling our door off. We'll unbolt the door check from the pillar, then from the inside of the door. We'll drop it down in the door. We'll get it later, or have a rattle, one or the other. I'll disconnect the wires. Sorry about the reflection. Front window didn't go down. We let the new guy set up the camera. So you just squeeze the tabs on all 4 sides, then the clip pops out. And we can just unplug it. Now we can unbolt the hinges and lift our door off. Try not to drop it. Now you pull our tires off. I can pull our wheel liner off, the right rear. Left rear was already torn off in the accident. Pop the little plastic rivets out. Pull the center down and pull them out. And there's one screw. Well, one screw that was left. The rest were supposed to be in the bumper, which I didn't get. So now we'll drop the exhaust down. We'll slide it out of its rubber mounts. Let the front of it hang. Then we'll lower the car down. Slide it out of the rear mounts, just so it doesn't have as far to fall. Now we can disconnect the emergency brake cable. Bend that little tab out. This one decided to break. Doesn't matter. Does the same thing. Slide the end of it out of there. And we can push our tabs in on our brake cable. These only have 2, so you don't need to use the wrench. You can just press them in with the screwdriver. Slide the other cable out. Try not to get whacked in the face with it. cables out of there. I can unbolt the cable from the rail. And the other cable. Actually, I think it's the same one. Now I can unplug the harness that goes to the subframe. Snap it back in our subframe. We can disconnect our brake lines. This wouldn't be possible if it was an Illinois vehicle. These would have been rusted up a long time ago. Now I'll unbolt the brake hose. Now we can do the passenger side. Break that line loose. Spin it off by hand. Because I can. It's nice to not have rusty things. Now we'll unbolt the brake hose. Get the bracket and everything with it. Now we can disconnect the shock. Pull the bottom out. And pull the top out. You need the wheel liner out to get the top bolts. That's why I took the other wheel liner out. Push the shock up. And pull it out of there. Now we can unbolt the subframe. One bolt in the back. One bolt in the front. Now we can unbolt our trailing arm. Now onto the other side. And pull our shock out. Compress the shock. And twist it out of there. Unbolt the rear subframe bolt. Front subframe bolt. And our trailing arm. Now if I did everything right, the subframe should stay there along with all the suspension. Springs might fall out. We're going to lift the car off. So we'll go little by little, make sure we didn't forget anything. Those trailing arms are resting on the arms of the lift. Somehow the springs got stuck to the body. But they're going to be in our way, so we'll take them out of there. And this car's going back to the storage yard, so they probably wouldn't make it the whole way there. Pull the spring out of the other side. And our subframe is free. Set our springs back in there. Our cables off of there. And lift it up. So here's our entire rear suspension. There's the subframe that we need. All these control arms, our knuckle, all that stuff, and a little bonus, brake hoses we'll need, and an entire wiring harness so we don't have to fix our old one. Just plug it in and we're all good. Now GM is cheap, so they didn't put these eccentrics on the bottom ones, so we'll have some extra ones from our other suspension. We'll swap them out. The alignment guy will love us. So now we're going to take that bracket that was torn out of our other one, out of this one. Our other parts car, we're only going to use a quarter off of it, so I don't want to have to drop the rear suspension. That's why it's easier to take this bracket out. Besides, the door's out of our way, our interior is already out, just much easier. So we'll draw out the spot welds on the bottom of the floor. And the camera guy set the camera up so I'm in the way. Guy's getting fired. So we'll drill the one weld that we can get to with our spot weld drill. And now we're going to go back to our little angle drill with our 1/8 inch bit. We'll drill some pilot holes. And we'll go over them with our 5/16 drill bit. It's much easier than trying to use a spot weld drill. For everybody that likes to tell me I should be using a spot weld drill. I did. I didn't like it. So after all the welds are drilled out, we can start breaking this thing loose. Hammer our little tab flat. Use the breaker on the other side. And it's almost free. Forgot one weld. We'll get it. Look, I used the spot weld drill. Don't know why. Now our bracket's out of there. So it's time to take our suspension apart. We're going to need some of it. And the work of the last guy is just too good not to share. So I'm not exactly sure what happened the last time. That is how they considered it to be welded. Incredible. In the pile. So we'll dismantle our suspension. This is all what I would have had to do if I was going to change it all over. And you can see why it's easier to leave it together. But I do have to take it apart because, well, in the pile, I need that little cam bolt. And the knuckle is aluminum, so it goes in a different pile. The brake rotor also goes in a different pile. But everything here is pretty much going in a pile. Break the little bolt that holds the rotor on loose with a 1/4 inch ratchet. Another thing you can't do on an Illinois vehicle. Now just 4 bolts to pull out of the hub and it's all ready for the pile. Now we can take the door off. Pull the door check out. Now we'll pull the wiring harness out. Pull the boot off and then push the 4 tabs in. The last guy just decided to yank it out of there, that's why it's all bent. I'm going to try not to do any more damage. Although, I may end up changing all this, so we'll see. Wire's twisted, so we'll untwist it a little bit. Stuff it back in there. Now we can unbolt our hinges and lift our door off. We'll go put it on the other car. It just keeps getting better. They actually shimmed out the striker to try and get the door to latch properly. Unbelievable. Somebody was driving around like this. Initially, I wasn't going to change the hinges. I was just going to put our door on our old hinges. But given the amount of adjustment and the way everything fits, I think I'm going to go with the ones I know that are good. Who knows what they did to these things. Just means I'll have to paint them. But I suspect I'll actually be getting up here to try and fix what they did. This all caved in. Could be like the Regal. Maybe it was the same people that fixed it. So we can bolt our door hinges on the door. These are self-aligning. That's why I put these back in the door first and then put the hinges on the car. Because if you do it the other way around, it's really hard to get those bolts to line up in the door. So we'll latch the back of it. Try. I tripped the latch as I was putting it on, so I had to pull the handle to open it back up. I can put our bolts in and see how it lines up. And it doesn't. So we can see about where the door belongs and about where the quarter should be. Got about 4 inches to pull it out. The rubber weather stripping should be touching the quarter. And the rest of our quarters in, about 4 to 6 inches. It just keeps getting better. Pulled the door panel off, because our door panel's a different color. And this is what I find. No water barrier. Guess it doesn't rain in Texas. So, I told you I was going to drive it. I wasn't joking. The front tire keeps spinning because this thing has no brakes, no emergency brake, and no regular brakes. So, you got to drive it demo car style. You put it in drive, start moving a little bit, throw it in neutral. If you need to stop, that's what reverse is for. You throw it in reverse until it stops moving, and then you jam it in park. If you just try to throw it in park to stop, you end up just making the parking pawl click and not stopping. If you need to go in reverse, the process is the opposite. You go in reverse, then when you want to stop, you drop it and drive. So we're just going to slowly drive it up on the lift. It looks like it's dragging the back of the car, but it's actually about a ½ inch off the ground. If I took the extra parts out of the back, I'd probably have about 2 inches. But I'm lazy. And even if it was dragging that bumper around, I wouldn't care.
Yeah.
So we made it as far as we can. Now we need to lift it up. I could put the ramps down, but that takes a little bit of a running start, and I don't want to send this thing through the wall. And now we're going to play seesaw with the car. Guess I didn't gain as much weight as I thought in quarantine. Plan B.
Grandpa Jack.
I'll get the ramps out while the roaming gnome grabs the jack. These ramps used to be in one piece, but they are about 35 years old, so things break. Jack the car up a little bit. Looks like a good spot. Our rack helps lift it a little bit, that's why I didn't let it back down. Get it up high enough that we can get the ramp underneath it. We'll slide the ramp forward. Or back, depending on how you look at it. Slide the ramp under the other side. I'm sure there's probably easier ways to do this, but this worked. So this is how we did it. I'll let the jack down and the lift.
Slowly.
So now we're up on the ramps. First hurdle is clear. Now I can't step on the brake to put it in gear. I can, but it doesn't do anything. So every time I drop it into gear, the massive torque from this little four-banger launches the ramp. I don't really want to fall off the end of it. So we'll use the roaming gnome as a wheel chock. You can hold the ramp so I can drive forward. And until our rear subframe hits the rack. We can no longer go any further.
You don't want to go no more.
So we just lift it up a little bit, get it up on top of the rack, and then it'll slide. We'll just use this bump stop. That's the approved lifting method, correct? That's all it took. I was going to put a block of wood in there. I decided I'll just drag it over the lift. There we go. Reposition the ramp on the other side so we can go forward. I need it centered on the lift, so when I use the measuring ladder, it fits. So there it is on the lift. So we have one last thing to do today. We're going to pull the seat belts out so we can send them out and have them rebuilt. That way we can keep going, and these are in the mail, get fixed, and then get mailed back. Hopefully by the time we're ready to put them in, they're already here. If I wait to take them out until later and send them out, it just delays the build. So let's get them out of here. So we'll unbolt the belt from the tensioner. Lift the seat up. Now we can get this bottom piece off. See the rest of our tensioner. Pull the safety out for the plug, and then snap the plug out. Try again. I'm too lazy to go find a socket, so we'll just use a wrench. That was the first 21mm I could find. So we'll just spin this nut off of here, and our tensioner is out. Now I'll pull the B-pillar trim down, get it out from under the sill plates, and lift it out of there. Unbolt the bottom of the retractor. No need to unplug it. They never bothered to plug it in the last time. Pull the screw out of the top of the B-pillar trim. Unbolt the top of the seatbelt. And there's one little retainer in the center. Pop that out of there, and our belts are ready to send out. Now we can do the passenger side. Same way. We're going to send these belts out to My Airbags. They're the ones rebuilding these for me. So you can check them out if you're rebuilding a car and need the seat belts done. They also do modules if you need one to be reset. So check them out at myairbags.com. top of our B-pillar trim. Take it out of there. Fish our seat belt out. A little adjuster for this one is broken, so we're going to need this trim piece. Luckily, I know a guy with some parts cars. I believe it's Scott's Terrain Emporium, located right next to Scott's Grand Am Emporium. Looks like we're going to need an adjuster too.